Before we begin, I invite you to gently close your ears and focus on what remains when all external sounds fade away. It's like sitting in a quiet room, and after a while, you notice a subtle ringing or hum beneath the silence. If you listen closely, you'll start to experience this soft, constant presence, something that feels like the very fabric of reality itself. In quantum physics, it's said that everything is connected at the most fundamental level, and that everything we see is just a manifestation of deeper, unseen energy. What you are hearing, or rather feeling, is that same energy, that same field of potential. This subtle ringing is what we call the sound of silence. It's not just an abstract concept or some external force. It's the very essence of you. Everything we discuss in this session and the ones to come will be about this sound of silence. It is not something separate or different from you. It is you. This exploration is about realizing that the sound of silence is your own inner being, your most fundamental nature, the stillness from which all life arises. You are that, the very presence behind everything. Santa sat down beside a cozy fire, his red suit glowing softly in the warmth, and began to speak in his deep, calming voice. "When one sits in meditation," he said, "there's a moment, a fleeting experience when all else fades away. For about 15 minutes you slip into a state where time and thought cease to exist. When you return from it, you often feel surprised, perhaps even saying, 'What an experience that was!' It's as if you've traveled somewhere, merged with something greater, or become one with someone. This is the nature of such a state. It's neither entirely conscious nor entirely unconscious. It's as though you're connected to something deeper, something beyond the surface of regular experience." Santa chuckled softly. Many people think of it as a sort of merging, and indeed it is like that. Whether you're meditating deeply or even sleeping, there's a connection, a union with something grander. But what exactly is this state? That's where understanding, wisdom, and experience must come together. He leaned forward, his eyes twinkling. Many seek this experience, trying to understand what it means to lose oneself and connect with something larger. Some have spent years, even decades, in search of this understanding. Some people dedicate their entire lives to it, becoming monks or sages, but still, they may not fully grasp the essence of it. So, how can one truly understand this state? Two things are needed: experience and knowledge. You can have an amazing experience, but without knowledge, it's like finding a gem and not knowing its value. Santa smiled knowingly. You've had the experience, but now the puzzle is figuring out its meaning. You need to ask, who am I? What is this world? What is the mind? What is the nature of everything? These are deep questions, and they're not easy to answer. But you've already laid the foundation by having the experience. He paused, allowing the listener to absorb the weight of his words, then continued. There's a concept people often talk about, the sound of silence. But calling it sound is misleading, because sound, as you know, is produced by the collision of two things. Silence isn't a sound in that way. It's something else entirely, something that lies beneath or beyond sound. Santa waved his hands as if pushing aside confusion. When you meditate, you might feel like you've stumbled upon a treasure, something precious that others have only read about but never found. But it's already within you. The challenge is in recognizing its value and understanding what it means. Knowledge without experience can be hollow, and experience without knowledge can leave you feeling stuck. He took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling slowly. You might be thinking, I hear the sound of silence. What does it mean? Well, let me ask you this. Who is the one listening? Are you the listener, or is there something deeper going on? When you go deep into meditation, the sound of silence fades, and only silence remains. It's not that you become attached to nothingness, rather it's about going beyond attachment altogether. Santa's expression grew thoughtful. It's much like falling asleep. Have you ever wondered how sleep comes? You lie down, and gradually your attention moves away from the external world, from the sounds, the sensations, the distractions. You let go of your focus on those things, and that's when sleep takes over. If you remain attached to external stimuli, sleep won't come easily. It's the same with deep meditation. He gave a soft laugh. When you begin to let go, you start to detach from the world around you. The noises, the sensations, the thoughts. You see, the world around us is constantly calling for our attention, but we have the power to control what we focus on. When you realize that the external world isn't controlling you, but rather you are the one deciding what to focus on, that's a profound realization. Santa's eyes twinkled again, full of warmth and understanding. Think about it. The sounds, the sensations, they aren't holding on to you. You are holding on to them. Even now, sitting here, you're choosing to listen to me rather than focusing on other sounds. The control is in your hands. He leaned back in his chair, folding his hands in his lap. Once you understand that, it's a big step. You begin to see that the world of objects and distractions can't dominate you unless you let it. Letting go of these things, this is what we call detachment. It's not about rejecting the world, but rather freeing yourself from being controlled by it. Santa's voice softened. So, when you lie down to sleep, you let go of external distractions, and then you begin to detach from the thoughts that flood your mind. Those thoughts, are they truly holding on to you, or are you holding on to them? You might think about your worries, your tasks, your loved ones, but those thoughts are still within your control. He smiled gently. The thoughts we hold on to are often tied to our sense of self, our sense of I and mine. We cling to these ideas, to relationships, to memories, and yet to find peace, we have to let go of them. If you can let go, even for a moment, what do you find? Silence. Peace. Santa's voice was soothing, almost like a lullaby. And as you let go, one by one, of all these attachments, you move closer to that state where there are no more thoughts, no more feelings, just stillness. In sleep it happens naturally, but in meditation you are consciously moving toward it. He paused, letting the stillness settle in the room before continuing. There's a moment in deep meditation, just like in deep sleep, where even the awareness of I fades. But this isn't something to get attached to either. These are just states of mind. What's important is understanding the underlying truth behind these states. Santa's expression became more serious as he spoke. You see, in sleep, even though you've let go of your thoughts, you are still there. If someone calls your name, you wake up. This shows that even in the deepest state of unconsciousness, there's something there, a presence, an awareness. His gaze softened again. And this presence, this awareness, is not something that comes and goes. It's always there, beneath all the layers of thought, emotion, and sensation. When you're awake, you're aware of objects, sounds, thoughts. But even when those things disappear, in deep sleep or deep meditation, you are still there. That awareness remains. Santa nodded, satisfied with the point he had made. So what does it mean to be a seer, a listener, a thinker? When you see something, you say, I am the seer. When you hear something, you say, I am the listener. But who is this I? He leaned forward again, eyes gleaming with curiosity. Is the seer separate from the seen? Is the listener separate from the sound? Or are they one and the same? These are the questions that take us deeper into understanding who we really are. Santa's voice grew quieter, but no less intense. When thoughts arise, you might say, I am thinking. But when the thought disappears, does the thinker disappear too? No, the thinker remains, even when thoughts come and go. He chuckled softly. This might seem complex now, but over time it will become clearer. Science has even begun to explore these ideas. Quantum physics tells us that reality behaves differently depending on whether someone is observing it. A particle behaves like a wave when it's not being observed, but as soon as there's an observer, it becomes a particle. What does this tell us? It suggests that much of what we perceive as reality is shaped by our own awareness. Santa leaned back with a satisfied smile. So, my dear friend, remember this. The world around you is not something separate from you. Your experience of it is deeply connected to your own awareness. Whether it's the sound of silence or the thoughts in your mind, everything is experienced within the vast, unchanging awareness that is you. With that, Santa fell silent, his message complete. He sat peacefully, the fire crackling beside him, as the listener pondered the wisdom he had shared.